My son sent me to a nursing home on my birthday. What he discovered changed everything forever. George sat in his small, cluttered living room, waiting for his son Ethan to arrive. Today was a day of celebration, his 78th birthday. The decorations hung from the ceiling like colorful dreams, balloons, streamers, and a big, homemade cake that smelled of vanilla and nostalgia. He reminisced about the many birthdays he'd shared with his family, his heart swelling with pride. Yet, the hour rolled by with no sign of Ethan. When the door finally creaked open, George's smile faltered. Ethan walked in, face drawn and weary. "Dad, we need to talk." It felt like a damning sentence hanging in the air. George's chest tightened as Ethan explained he could no longer afford to care for him at home. With a shaky voice, Ethan revealed he had found a nursing home that was nice and affordable. The words cut through George, leaving him breathless. "You're sending me away on my birthday," he whispered, a tightness pulling at his throat. In a blur, George found himself packing his things, tears pooling in his eyes as he folded his old military jacket neatly. "It's just for a while," Ethan said, pulling him into a brief hug. As George stepped into the nursing home, it felt like a prison instead of a refuge. The sterile scent of disinfectant tinged the air, a stark contrast to the warmth of his home. Days went by, and he wandered through the halls of the nursing home. Faces wrinkled akin to crumpled photographs stared back at him. The loneliness wrapped around him like a heavy quilt. He missed being part of something meaningful. But soon enough, he found himself drawn to the other residents. There was Alice, who told tales of dancing with her husband under the stars, and Bill, a gruff but kind man with a gentle laugh that could melt ice. George began to share his own stories of service and sacrifice, igniting a spark in those tired eyes. Laughter intertwined with tears, and in those moments, he regained a sliver of dignity. Meanwhile, Ethan found himself drowning in the weight of his decisions. His tech business was crumbling, and every late-night phone call from creditors hammered away at his nerves. Memories of his father's resilience flooded back, how George had persevered through wars and economic strife. But as he watched his father thrive within the nursing home community, guilt gnawed at his heart. How could he have underestimated the strength of camaraderie and connection? With his heart heavy, Ethan stood outside the nursing home one evening, watching through the glass. George was laughing, joy radiating from him like sunlight piercing through storm clouds. The realization struck him hard. In trying to secure his father's future, he had risked losing him entirely. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As laughter echoed within the walls, Ethan's vision blurred with unshed tears. The spiraling thoughts of regret pressed against his mind like a relentless tide. He had thought he was making the right choice, but now he understood the real cost of what he had done. Could he still reclaim the values his father instilled in him? Standing there, he felt a powerful urge to walk through those doors, to reconnect and rebuild. Would George welcome him back into his heart, or would the gap between them continue to widen? The answers felt tangled, leaving Ethan grappling with the question, could he ever find his way back to the father he thought he lost? Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself. Every step toward the entrance felt monumental. What could he say? How could he begin to mend the chasm that appeared between them so suddenly? As he pushed the door open, the sounds of chatter and laughter enveloped him. He spotted his father across the room, surrounded by his new friends. George's eyes sparkled beneath the warm overhead lights, a stark contrast to the somber mood Ethan had carried in with him. "Dad?" Ethan's voice wavered, causing George to turn. In that moment, the smile on his father's face faded, replaced with uncertainty. There was a flicker in George's eyes. Was it hope? Disappointment? Ethan could hardly tell. George's voice was cautious, almost like he was testing the waters. He stood up slowly, the years seeming to weigh heavily on him as he adjusted his glasses. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to see you," Ethan managed, fighting back the lump in his throat. I messed up, Dad." The tension in the room shifted slightly, drawing the attention of Alice and Bill. They exchanged glances, sensing something significant unfolding. "Look, I know I made a mistake. I thought," Ethan stumbled over his words. "I thought sending you here would be better for both of us, but I see now that I was wrong. You're happy here, but how could I have forgotten how much you needed me too?" George remained silent for a moment, processing. He looked at Ethan, his heart aching for the boy he once knew. The one who would race him to the end of the driveway. "You took care of yourself first, didn't you?" he finally said, his tone steady but soft. "You thought I would be okay. That I didn't need you anymore." The realization hit Ethan like a punch in the gut. His father's words sliced through the denial he'd wrapped around himself. "I thought I was helping, Dad. I wanted what was best for you." "Are you saying this because you feel guilty?" George challenged, defenses on the rise. It was not the reunion Ethan had hoped for. The warmth of the room felt suddenly cold, the reality of their situation crashing down on him again. "No." Ethan shook his head vehemently. "I'm saying this because I've seen you come alive here. I've seen how you've connected with these people. And I want to be a part of that again." George stared deeply into his son's eyes, searching for sincerity. His heart wrestled with the love and resentment mingling within. The warmth of the community around him was undeniable, but so was the ache of feeling abandoned. "Yes, we laughed together," George started slowly, "but it does not erase the past. How do we fix what was broken?" Ethan felt the weight of his father's pain wash over him. The knot in his stomach twisted. "Let's start fresh, please. I want to help you keep this happiness. You don't need to do it alone anymore." Would George be willing to lean on him again? The idea filled Ethan with quiet hope, but the question lingered unspoken, hanging in the air between them. A silence settled, the lively chatter around them fading momentarily. George's gaze softened as he took a step forward. "It won't be easy, will it?" Ethan swallowed hard. "No, but I'm ready to try. We can build something new, together." A flicker of a smile broke across George's face, though it was bittersweet. "Together," he echoed softly, the word imbued with both sadness and warmth. But just as a fresh warmth began to take hold, the nursing home's intercom crackled to life, announcing a bingo game that would soon start in the common room. The loud call interrupted their moment, reminding them both of the laughter filling the building just outside their bubble of uncertainty. Ethan turned toward the door. "How about a game? We could sit together. Just like old times." George hesitated but then nodded, a hint of eagerness creeping in. As they walked side by side, Ethan felt the distance between them start to shrink, one step at a time. But deep down, even amidst this fragile revival of connection, the looming question remained, could he still be the son George needed? Would their past haunt him like a shadow, or could they both emerge, stronger together? Could they redefine their bond, or was the gap they created too vast to bridge? Ethan and George made their way through the bustling common area, laughter from the other residents filling the air like confetti. The bright colors of the bingo cards contrasted sharply with the sterile whites and grays of the walls. It was strange how the atmosphere felt both welcoming and intimidating at the same time. As they approached a round table already occupied by other players, Ethan's heart raced with anticipation. "Here we go," Ethan said, trying to mask his nervousness with a playful tone. He pulled out a chair, gesturing for his father to sit next to him. George complied, a cautious smile creeping onto his lips as he adjusted his glasses. The game started, and numbers were called out in rapid succession. George picked up his markers with a precision that looked practiced. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest as he watched his father's focus. But with each passing number, memories rushed back. Time spent worrying over homework or tending to scraped knees. He used to be George's world, but somehow that had flipped. Bingo! A voice boomed across the room, shattering Ethan's concentration. He looked over to see an elderly woman with twinkling eyes grinning from ear to ear as everyone clapped. "Well, there's one winner," George remarked, a hint of admiration in his tone. "She's got a way of making everything more exciting, doesn't she?" Ethan chuckled, buoyed by George's lightheartedness. "She does. Maybe we should take lessons from her." The laughter came easily, but as he shared that moment, he felt a lingering shadow bear down. Would there be enough lessons to rebuild trust as well? The game progressed, punctuated by shouts and laughter. George played with enthusiasm, occasionally leaning slightly closer to reach for a marker, their shoulders brushing against one another. Each time, Ethan felt that familiar spark of connection, but doubts lingered like clouds in the sky. "Ethan," George suddenly said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "Do you think we can do this? Really do this?" Ethan paused, feeling his pulse quicken. His father was finally asking the tough questions, reaching for honesty instead of small talk. "I'm willing to try, Dad. I've failed you before, but I want to learn and be there. I need to fix this." George took a deep breath, his warm gaze mixing longing with something deeper hidden behind it. "It's not that simple. Happiness isn't just a matter of coming together. It's layers of trust built over time. Can we peel back those layers?" Ethan's throat tightened. George had a point. Could they truly start from zero? The weight of past mistakes loomed heavily around them. I guess it'll take time and work. Trust is hard to earn back. But if we keep trying, maybe it'll grow again?" A flicker of hope ignited in George's eyes, but the hint of skepticism was still present. Time won't be an instant fix. What happens when old wounds resurface? When old habits come back? Can we handle the ghosts of our past? Before Ethan could respond, the intercom crackled again, announcing another game. Claps echoed as everyone engaged cheerfully, but Ethan felt suspended in uncertainty. His father's words hung in the air, heavy like a stone. As they continued to play, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was more than just a simple bingo game. It was an opportunity for transformation, a chance to shape something meaningful out of the rubble of their past mistakes. But how much of it would rely on his ability to confront the real issues and not just the surface-level smiles? When the game ended and applause filled the air, George looked at Ethan, a question brewing in his eyes. The laughter faded slightly as a deeper tension emerged. "Ethan," he started, hesitation creeping into his voice. "What if this isn't just about you and me? What if there are other things at play that we aren't even recognizing?" Ethan felt a chill run through him as he grasped the weight of what his father just hinted at. What else could be lurking beneath the surface of their relationship? Like what? He dared to ask, fear and curiosity colliding within him. George took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. What if keeping happiness is more complicated than we think? Ethan's heart raced. What more lay ahead in their journey? What truths were waiting for him, shrouded in the tension of their unspoken fears? He needed answers, needed to dig deeper, but was he ready to uncover what lay beneath? Ethan's chest tightened, an ache of urgency spiraling inside him. This was more than just a conversation about trust, it was an invitation to confront the messy web of emotions that had tied their relationship into knots. George's question hung in the air, challenging them both to peel back the layers of their shared life. "What do you mean, Dad?" Ethan asked, searching his father's eyes for clarity, for some sign of where this was going. "Sometimes," George began, his voice steady but soft, "the things we think are just between us are really connected to bigger issues, fear, resentment, maybe even shame. Things we've never really talked about." Ethan swallowed hard. Could it be that their issues stretched beyond just the two of them? Was there something deeper, things that shaped how they interacted? He glanced around the room, as if other families were mirrors reflecting their struggles. Suddenly, the laughter around him felt distant, the bingo game just a background noise to the storm brewing within him. "I've been so focused on trying to get things back to normal between us," Ethan admitted tentatively. "But maybe it's been colored by how I feel about everything else, the anger, the confusion. I've brushed it aside." George nodded, his expression a blend of hope and caution. "Exactly. You had to be angry. It was part of coping with a situation no one wants to face. But anger shouldn't become a wall between us." Ethan felt his heart beating faster. Was he really ready to face this? "So, what do we do?" he asked softly. "We start talking," George suggested, his voice unexpectedly firm. "Openly, no more dancing around topics. Make space for those hard feelings. We both have a lot to unpack, and I think we'll have to confront the kind of heartache that pushed us apart in the first place." Ethan couldn't argue with that. He knew they needed to confront those ghosts. But a knot of fear twisted in his stomach. What if talking about those feelings brought more pain than healing? What if I can't say things right? He whispered, the vulnerability surfacing. What if I just make it worse? George put a hand on Ethan's shoulder, grounding him. "It's okay to be scared. Just don't let that fear hold you back. This is hard for both of us. We've both made mistakes." Acknowledgement stung. Ethan's mind raced with regret. Memories of each painful moment blended into a montage of lost opportunities. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Dad. I thought sending you here was what was best." George's eyes softened, the lines on his face deepening. "And I know you thought that, Ethan. But this hasn't been easy for me either. Growing old, moving into a place like this, it felt like a rejection. That's a wall I'm still working to tear down." Ethan's eyes widened. He had always seen his father's move as purely practical, but now, his heart sank with the realization that it had meant so much more. It was a pivotal point in their journey. "Maybe we can break those walls together," Ethan offered, a flicker of hope beginning to glimmer within him. "If we just try." George smiled, a mixture of relief and encouragement lighting his face. "Yes, together. But we have to be honest about how hard this will be. It'll feel like wading through a storm sometimes." As they sat there, the tired echoes of laughter and the hum of the world faded away. For the first time, they were standing on the edge of transformation, ready to delve into what had always been left unsaid, but just as the light of hope began to shine a bit brighter, the intercom buzzed again, announcing a surprise birthday celebration for one of the residents. The claps and shouts invaded their moment, shifting the atmosphere yet again. Ethan glanced at George, confusion painting his features. "Can we join?" "It seems like a distraction," George chuckled softly, his eyes crinkling at the edges. "Sometimes, a distraction can be just what we need." As they joined the crowd, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that while this was a joyful moment, the real work was just beginning. A realization settled deep in his heart. Uncertainty lingered, but so did determination. What awaited them now as they stepped into this world of celebration? Could joy serve as a bridge to their honest conversations? A thought sparkled in his mind. Was it time to embrace both the laughter and the tears, knowing they could finally face whatever lay ahead together? With each cheer erupting around him, Ethan felt the weight transform into a flicker of possibility. And in the midst of the festivities, another question simmered beneath the surface, urging to be answered. What deep truths could they discover amidst the laughter and cake? The din of laughter enveloped them as Ethan and George stepped into the vibrant crowd. Colorful balloons danced overhead while streamers flared like confetti in the light. Residents began singing, their voices blending into an unexpected medley of warmth and cheer that washed over them. It felt like a wave of life, stealing away the tension that had settled between father and son just moments before. Ethan's heart fought to synchronize with the energy around him. He wanted to join and wanted to let the joy seep in, yet a knot of anxiety held him steadfast. He fingered the edge of his shirt, finding comfort in the simple fabric and the familiarity of the moment. "Are you okay?" he asked, glancing sideways at George, whose expression was a mix of amusement and nostalgia. "I've never had a birthday party like this," George replied, his tone imbued with surprise. "It makes me feel young again. A little bit like the old days." Ethan smiled at that. He thought back to their shared birthdays, the laughter echoing through their old home, his mom always cooking his favorite cake. But now, everything felt different. George was navigating an unfamiliar chapter in his life, and so was Ethan. This place, this gathering, it was a testament of resilience, a chance to create new memories even amidst lingering heartaches. The cheerful chaos nudged at Ethan's anxiety, urging him to engage. He took a deep breath, his heart still fluttering. "Maybe we can dance?" he suggested, the words feeling foreign but liberating as they escaped his lips. George looked surprised, then bemused. "Dance? You know I'm not the twirling type," George chuckled, but the spark in his eyes told Ethan that he was game. "Come on, it'll be fun. I'll show you a few moves." With an endearing grin, George raised his hands in mock surrender, and the two of them broke into an exaggerated shuffle. Laughter erupted around them, and soon others joined in, forming a circle where the age barriers seemed to vanish for a moment. As they stumbled through the steps, Ethan's heart lifted. In that dance, something shifted between them, their laughter echoed louder than any unspoken hurt. He could feel George's spirit rising, felt each careful step taken together unwinding the tightness of their past. After a couple of songs, breathless and red-faced, they settled down on the edge of the gathering. A plate of birthday cake materialized in George's hands, and he proffered it to Ethan. "You have to try this," he insisted, his voice gleeful and mischievous. "Only if you share, old man," Ethan teased, stabbing at a piece with his fork. They both took a bite at the same time, and as the rich chocolate melted on their tongues, their eyes met, the moment sparkling with a shared delight. "It's good, but not as good as your mother's," George admitted, wiping a crumb from his chin. The reminiscence hung in the air, a reminder of how much had changed. "Yeah, Mom would have loved this," Ethan said, allowing a sense of loss to bloom quietly between them. "It's okay to miss her, you know." George's voice lowered, filled with understanding. "It means she mattered." Ethan nodded, feeling their shared grief bridge the gap that had once felt insurmountable. "I guess we're still figuring everything out," he confessed, vulnerability unlike anything he had felt before spilling from him. "About us, about her, about how to do this right." As George opened his mouth to respond, the room erupted into cheers once more. Another resident had taken the floor, bringing the spotlight back to the celebrations. Ethan felt a rushed joy and dread intertwined. They had waded through some hard truths and found laughter again, but the real conversations were still waiting under the surface, just beyond reach. As the celebration continued to swirl around them, Ethan stared at George, a profound question rising within him. Could this new beginning bloom from the shadows of the past? What other untold stories were waiting to come alive in the safety of their renewed bond? And amid the festivities, Ethan's heart raced with anticipation and fear alike. What new depths of connection could they discover about each other, and more importantly, who they had become in the wake of all their pain? The energy of the party surged as laughter and music pulsed around them. It felt like the world was a little brighter today. But Ethan sensed a shift within himself, a bubbling curiosity under the surface. He stole another glance at George, who now seemed more like a figure in a photograph rediscovered, vivid yet slightly out of focus. "Do you remember the time we had that surprise party for Mom?" Ethan asked, the memories drawing him closer to the edge of nostalgia. George looked up, the corners of his mouth curling into a gentle smile. "How could I forget? We thought we were so sneaky, but she caught us setting everything up." "Yeah, and she acted all surprised even though she already knew," Ethan chuckled, the lightness of shared memories lifting the weight in his chest. "Your mom was always good at putting on a show," George said, his eyes twinkling with remembrance, "but it wasn't just a show, not for her. She genuinely loved those moments. The mention of his mother hung in the air, peaceful but charged with emotions. It was a ground they both walked carefully, testing its strength with each conversation. Ethan felt the warmth seep back into his beating heart as more laughter erupted around them. He watched other partygoers join a conga line, swaying and twisting, limbs flailing in a celebratory rhythm that made him want to move again. "Hey, we should join them!" George exclaimed, his initial reluctance melted away by the buzz of the crowd. Ethan didn't need to be asked twice. They both jumped to their feet, finding their place in the line. As they danced, weaving between laughter and jests, Ethan's heart soared. With every step, their bond felt less like an obligation and more like a spontaneous adventure waiting to unfold. George, with his surprising agility, led them further, eliciting chuckles from those nearby. They spun and turned, their feet moving in time to a beat that echoed the delight in everyone's eyes. When they finally pulled away from the conga line, breathless and exhilarated, Ethan noticed something different in George's eyes, a spark of life that had been dimmed for far too long. "See? You're not so bad at this dancing thing," Ethan teased, nudging him playfully. "Don't tell your mother," George replied, raising an eyebrow, equally playful. "Your secret's safe with me," Ethan assured. But as the laughter faded into a more contemplative silence between them, Ethan felt compelled to dig deeper. "Dad, what was Mom like before, before everything?" The question lingered heavy in the air, yet it felt necessary to bridge the past with the present. A soft glow crossed George's face, a reflective moment that he seemed to treasure. She was passionate. Every holiday was an event, she made the ordinary feel magical. "You remember how she'd decorate the house, turning it into a wonderland?" Of course, Ethan nodded, the memories flooding his mind, the glimmering lights, the scent of fresh cookies, the laughter mingling with holiday music. "I used to think it was just show," George continued. "Now, I realize she was working her magic to keep us together. To give us happiness when times were hard." Ethan took a breath, feeling something begin to crystallize in his understanding of both parents. They weren't just shadows of his childhood, they held real, tangible lives filled with complexities. "Do you ever think about how we can create new moments like that?" Ethan ventured, a throbbing hope growing inside him. "Mom may be gone, but we can still celebrate. We can still laugh." George turned to him, eyes widening slightly, perhaps surprised at the sincerity of his son's words. "What do you have in mind?" Ethan's heart raced at the possibility. They could organize family gatherings, game nights, or other celebrations that honored the happy memories and paved way for new ones. What if we could build on this day? Make it a tradition, just like Mom would have? A slow smile broke across George's face, and for a brief moment, all sadness seemed to fade. It felt like a promise, not just a suggestion but a possibility swirling just out of reach. "Yes," George finally said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I would love that." Ethan felt the weight of the years begin to chatter, the air between them brimming with unspoken dreams and desires. As they stepped back into the crowd, filled with laughter and warmth, one thought pushed its way to the forefront of Ethan's mind. What would it take to make this new journey a reality? And could they breathe new life into the bond that had once seemed lost in shadows? Ethan's mind raced as they rejoined the party. The music pulsed, each beat echoing the new resolution forming between him and George. He felt a rush of energy. Was it excitement or anxiety? Maybe both. Deep down, he understood that his proposal could bring change, a shift he yearned for but also dreaded. "Let's get everyone involved," Ethan suggested, scanning the crowd. "We could do a big family event, a way to honor Mom's legacy. We could really make it special." George nodded, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "You're right. Remember how she always loved Thanksgiving? We could kick it off with something like that, gather everyone, invite the cousins and aunts. We could even introduce new games." Ethan's heart warmed at the idea. "And we should have a theme for each gathering, something that helps us remember her. Like a throwback night or a family history challenge." The thought of turning the memories into a celebration energized him. It opened a door to a world where laughter mingled with bittersweet nostalgia, a place where past and present could coexist. "Let us talk to the family," George said suddenly, determination flooding his voice. "I think they'd love to be a part of this." They moved through the lively party, Ethan buoyed by George's newfound enthusiasm. As they approached family members, George's easy smile transformed into a beacon of warmth, drawing people in like moths to a flame. "Hey, everyone!" George called out, his voice carrying over the laughter and music. "Ethan and I have an idea." Curiosity flickered across the faces of their family gathered around the snack table, plates brimming with colorful treats. "We want to start a new tradition of family gathering, just like your Aunt Linda used to do." Ethan stepped in, passion spilling into his words. "A way to keep her memory alive and create new moments together." Whispers danced among the relatives, eyes sparkling with intrigue. A flurry of agreement followed, laughter breaking out as they exchanged memories of family gatherings long past. "Remember the pineapple upside-down cake? And who could forget Uncle Nate's terrible karaoke?" As excitement built, Ethan felt a sense of belonging grow within him. It was almost tangible, like a warm hug enveloping them all. Each shared giggle tugged at the threads of sadness, weaving them into a fresh tapestry of hope. "Let us set a date," George shouted over the commotion, his face alight with vigor, but just then, a voice broke through, fumbling the jovial moment. "What about the old family home? Will we have access to it?" It was Aunt Mary, her brow furrowed with concern. Ethan felt a tremor of doubt shake the air. No one had mentioned the home yet. Their family's history was tangled in memories housed within those walls, but recent discussions had moved toward selling it. Would they really want to return to the nostalgia that could sting alongside the joy? And what if others disagree with this idea? Uncle Rob chimed in, his skepticism palpable. George exchanged glances with Ethan, the earlier warmth now cloaked in uncertainty. A ripple of tension spread among the group, showcasing that not everyone was invested in the same dream. Ethan's heart sank. What if this vision of a happy family gathering took a back seat to old grievances? What if their plan unraveled before it even began? Uplifting sentiments rushed worthlessly around him, now constricting. He knew deep down this was a chance for growth, but he also understood they must navigate the complex emotions ahead to truly honor his mother's legacy. "We can't let fear hold us back," Ethan finally said, his voice steady. "Mom would have fought for this, for all of us to come together." And as he spoke the words, he could almost feel her presence enveloping him, urging him to take the leap. Would the family embrace this discussion to move forward, or would it lead to deeper divisions? As the party swirled around them, Ethan braced for an answer or direction. And in that moment, he questioned whether he was ready for the challenge ahead, and if they could truly unite to remember the joy that was once theirs. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as Aunt Mary's question hung in the air. The festive atmosphere cooled like a dropped ice cube hitting hot pavement. The laughter faded, replaced by the murmur of uncertainty. People exchanged glances, checks for approval and retreat, their minds racing toward the implications of owning a piece of the past that some might be ready to leave behind. "We can still find a way," George said, his voice firm, but Ethan detected a hint of hesitance lurking underneath. He felt the gravity shift. The joy that had just spilled over now felt layered in doubt with every passing second. "Let's just talk it through. The house means so much to us, but we all need to be on board." The murmurs grew louder, voices merging into a blend of opinions that threatened to fracture their goal. "It's too much maintenance," Uncle Rob grumbled. "How can we afford the bills on that place?" But before George could respond, Aunt Mary continued, "And what about the memories? I can't handle strolling through those rooms without feeling her absence. It might be too painful." Ethan's heart sank deeper. The conversations around him reminded him of the swirling uncertainty he felt when he first stepped into the void of loss. He clutched the edges of the table, feeling its rough surface grounding him in the moment, yet, just as despair threatened to swallow the evening, a soft voice came from the corner. "Ethan, do you remember the summer we spent there? The big barbecue where everyone ended up in the pool? It was his cousin Sarah, a bright light in the ongoing shadow. We were all this close. I can still hear your mom laughing about Dad grilling those burnt burgers. Her simple memory transformed the room. Laughter bubbled up, soft at first, then rising in waves. The images painted nostalgia in vibrant strokes, both joyous and painful. Family gatherings bathed in the warm glow of love. Those memories are important, George stepped in, encouraged. We could restore the house while making new ones. It can represent a bridge, connecting the past with our future. A few nods appeared, cracking the veil of dissent. Ethan could feel a pulse racing through him again, igniting the room with a spark of hope. Seems like we can work together. It doesn't have to just be about the property or the memories, it can be about us, moving forward as a family not divided by grief but united by love. The chatter shifted, faces softened, and Ethan could see people weighing their options with thoughtful expressions. The conversation grew wings, weaving around the possibilities that lay ahead, but then Aunt Mary sighed, breaking the fragile cheer. I need some time to think. This is a lot to unpack. I know everyone wants to come together, but we also need to face our own feelings about this. Ethan nodded, understanding how complex emotions were fluttering just below the surface. Would family pride be enough to heal their wounds? The questions lingered like ghosts in the AIR.as the group resumed lighter topics, Ethan's heart still drummed in his chest. He turned to George, whose face mirrored the internal push and pull. Do you think we can really mend things? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. George met his eyes, determination and uncertainty dancing within. We can try. Starting with the house, and then, we can extend our reach. Mom would want us to lift each other up, not pull each other down. Taking a deep breath, Ethan felt a rush of determination course through him. Whatever direction lay ahead, he was ready to navigate it. But would the family truly support him through this pursuit? And as the night wore on, the shadows of the past loomed with both promise and doubt. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. What would unfold after the party? A chorus of healing or the clashing of unresolved grief? The party had eased into a quieter tone, conversations drifting to simpler topics. While laughter still erupted occasionally, the weight of Aunt Mary's words hung like a cloud, promising rain. As he glanced around the room, Ethan felt deeply conflicted. Everyone was smiling, but the cracks of uncertainty were starting to show. People chatted about the plans for Thanksgiving, how they could all gather again, but it rang hollow in Ethan's ears. This house wasn't just a backdrop, it was a vessel of their history. Every corner seemed to echo with the laughter of the people they had lost. Nothing could replace that, but they all stood at a precipice, deciding whether to leap or turn back. Hey, why don't we look through some old photos? Sarah suggested suddenly, breaking the silence. We can remember the good times, honor them. Ethan's heart warmed at the idea. The old photo albums had been a source of comfort in tough times. They had secrets hidden within their pages, stories that whispered of love and unity. Yeah, let us do it, Ethan agreed. Maybe it will help us see what really matters. George nodded in approval, and together they moved to retrieve the albums from the dusty shelf in the living room. They could feel the excitement in the air, a buzz of nostalgia sparking back to life. As they settled in the corner of the room, the others gathered around, curiosity lighting their faces. The first album opened, revealing faded photographs, smiling faces, birthday celebrations, holidays brimming with joy. Ethan flipped through the pages, losing himself. The laughter, the warmth, they all seemed to leap from the snapshots, igniting something within him. That was the Halloween when you dressed up as a skeleton, Ethan. Sarah pointed at a photo. You had the scariest mask. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. And I thought I was hot stuff too. The nostalgia was infectious, even Aunt Mary allowed herself a small smile. Look at your mother here, George said, pointing to an image of his mom at the lake, sunlight streaming through her hair as she beamed at the camera. She always knew how to make the moment feel special. The mood shifted, the shadows of doubt momentarily replaced by a warm glow of shared memories. Everyone began to share stories, laughter intertwining with a hint of tears as they recounted moments that both stung and soothed, but as the laughter crescendoed, Ethan caught sight of Aunt Mary's expression. She had turned away from the group, her hands clasped tightly in her lap as she stared at a photograph of Ethan's mother alone. The joy faded from her face, replaced with a troubling sorrow that seemed too deep for words. "Are you all right, Aunt Mary?" he asked gently, breaking through the jovial noise. Her eyes glimmered with tears. I feel her absence so strongly. I don't know if I can dive back into that house without a piece of me breaking again." The silence she left hung heavy in the air. Ethan leaned in closer. "We can take it step by step. We'll do it together. Just like we're doing now." He felt a surge of something strong and hopeful bubbling in him again. Maybe this wasn't just about the house. Maybe they could rebuild not just places, but bonds. But Aunt Mary shook her head slowly. "You all have the strength to move forward. I just don't know if I can keep up." As her words settled, tension curled in the space between them. Would they be able to move forward if the foundation of their family stood on shaky ground? Ethan's heart raced with questions, the air thick with unspoken fears and whispered dreams. He felt a wave of urgency wash over him. How could he not only win back the house but also heal this gaping wound in his family? As the night deepened, he resolved within himself. They could rewrite this story, but how would he bring everyone along? The moonlight flooded through the window, illuminating their faces, casting fleeting shadows of hope. What lay ahead felt uncertain, but one thing was clear: the struggle was just beginning, and his family's future hinged on the choices they made next. Would they rise together or remain stuck, haunted by the past? As dawn broke, bathing the nursing home in a soft, golden light, George sat in his room looking out the window at the sky awakening. He felt a sense of peace that had been obscured by the weight of worry and regret for so long. It was a new day, and for the first time in ages, he was filled with hope. In the distance, he could still hear the faint echoes of laughter from last night's birthday celebration, where laughter reconnected hearts that had been drifting apart. Ethan had stayed late, and they had spoken more than they had in years. It was raw, painful at times, but it was necessary. They had unwrapped layers of hurt and confusion, even shared stories about his mother, finding solace in the memories. It was not perfect, but it was progress, the type of golden opportunity George needed to mend their relationship. As he swallowed his morning coffee, warm and inviting, memories from their conversations played in his head. Ethan's eager determination to create a new family tradition, to embrace their tangled past together. George smiled at the thought. His son was ready to take that leap. Meanwhile, Ethan paced in his apartment, excitement thrumming through his veins. Today was going to be different. He had gathered family members for a brunch to discuss their plans, a way to honor his mother and perhaps start anew. The realization that they could create spaces for joyful moments filled him with courage. When Ethan arrived at the nursing home, he found George waiting by the entrance, a determined glint in his eyes. "You ready?" Ethan asked, seeing the excitement bubbling beneath the surface. "More than ready," George replied, returning Ethan's hopeful smile. Together, they stepped into the small gathering room, where family members began to filter in. Laughter filled the air as faces turned to greet them, smiling in gentle acknowledgement of the journey they were all willing to undertake. "Hey everyone!" Ethan called as he approached the long table lined with plates of food that smelled heavenly. "We want to talk about keeping our family together. To create a new tradition, something we can celebrate and embrace just like Mom would have done." The room fell silent, eyes meeting each other with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Aunt Mary, still carrying the tender weight of the previous night's tears, looked at Ethan, who spoke with more conviction than he felt. "I know the house is a complicated topic," Ethan admitted, infusing sincerity into his voice. "But we can create memories in that space again. Memories that honor her while bringing us closer." We can redesign our family gatherings to be more than just nostalgia. They can be about love and unity. Cousin Sarah nodded, catching on to the sentiment. I think that's a beautiful idea. We can start small, just get together for a family dinner. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be us. I'd like to have input on what we celebrate and how, Aunt Mary added, her voice steadier this time. We should remember all the good times but acknowledge the pain too. Ethan smiled, warmth flooding his heart. Exactly. Let us own our memories, both good and bad. Those feelings are part of who we are. We're still a family, and I believe we can still make it stronger if we understand each other better. As discussions unfurled among family members, more voices chimed in with ideas, stories, and plans. George remained a grounding force, nodding and encouraging Ethan, all the while feeling more alive through every shared intention. Moments passed, and as the sunlight streamed through the windows, laughter began to bubble again, echoing the memory of celebrations past. The heaviness that once filled the room began to lift, replaced by a shared determination not to shy away from their complexities but to embrace them. Don't forget the pineapple upside-down cake, Uncle Rob chimed in, prompting laughter again. That was legendary. Definitely on the list. Ethan grinned, a sense of accomplishment swelling in him. This feels right, Ethan, George said softly, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We still have so much ahead of us. There's work to do, but we're in it together. They gathered around to raise their glasses not just to toast a shared meal but to honor new beginnings. As clinking glasses echoed through the room, a sudden swell of emotion swept over Ethan. He could feel his mother's spirit intertwining with theirs, her laughter reverberating through their hearts, beckoning them to create a vibrant legacy. They had not just salvaged spaces. They had woven the threads of connection anew. In the weeks that followed, amid challenges and joy, family dinners became a tradition. They lit candles and shared stories, laughter growing louder with every gathering. Each time George would spin a yarn about traveling, and Ethan would watch the sparks in his father's eyes ignite his own youthful spirit, a bond rekindled and blossoming like spring flowers after winter's chill. As his father settled more comfortably into this new chapter, Ethan felt the urgency swell within him to continue fighting for their family. He wanted them all to come together not just for fleeting moments but to build something lasting, an opportunity for love to flourish and for healing to prevail. Across the gentle horizon, where hope and promise converged, words sketched with heart and soul began etching a melody of family, one key to which was love. And with that, Ethan couldn't shake the responsibility to seize the moment, calling on viewers to transform their own relationships, to plant seeds of hope, turn shouldered burdens into nourishment for the soul. As they gathered around the table, one question lingered in the air, a welcome whisper urging that they needed to be proactive in their love and joy because tomorrow was never promised. Now was the time. This was the moment to subscribe to their own story and celebrate each other. Join me on this journey. Don't wait not even one more second to share your own heartfelt transformations. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss these exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, so we can uplift each other together. Comment your reactions and feelings about today's ending. What would you want to celebrate with your family? And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see just how transformation can happen when we embrace love over fear. You need to support the channel through these actions. Only true fans truly understand the power of connection.